Yeah.
The question that was here earlier, how did you meet your mentors? I can just say real quick, the way that I met Eric Valentine was through records that I'd made. I produced a number of things when I was in high school, bands, including this band, The Matches, that ended up signing to Epitaph Records. And but we made a record basically in my parents' basement and the drummer's living room that Eric found through local California punk rock bands, and he liked the band and met with them, and they took me to their meetings. So I got to meet him that way, and basically just bothered him for 6 months until he hired me at $7 an hour to come assist on a record, assist on a project. So it was, I had made a bunch of things, and the results of me making good work was that it got passed around, and I got pulled into conversations and meetings because of that. If you have a quick Tony story, how did you meet Tony?
Mine's pretty similar to a degree. I was working with my best friend Addison from Long Island on what was the closest thing to pop music that I had been working on. I was mostly like working on indie bands from Brooklyn and Long Island and hardcore bands and more band focused stuff. And Addison and I were making pop. He met a manager through a homie, Evan, that used to assist Tony Maserati. Happened to be Tony's manager at the time, no longer managing him now. But after being introduced to her, when I moved to LA, she said, well, I'll fly out to LA and I'll introduce you to Tony because, you know, you're an engineer. You should probably meet Tony Maserati. And I was like, yeah, probably should. Yeah, because he's my favorite. I've been studying him since I was 16, 17 and realized this is what I wanted to do. And More Money, More Problems and Biggie Records and, you know, all the things, all the way up to Jason Mraz and some obscure like French jazz records that he was making. So we met with Addison and we were playing our records that we did together. And he thought that they sounded pretty good. So he was like, oh, you know, we should work together sometime. You know, we never did. I think it was like 3 to 6 months later. At the same time, I've met one of my best homies now, Spider, who I talk about a lot, works with PMC that you know. And Spider, like, we exchanged numbers. He texted me out the blue one day being like, yo, Tony and I were just like thinking about you. Want you to come through, like, pull up. And just so happened that his studio was like across the Burbank bike path from where I was. So I got there in like 3-minute walk, just kind of walked across the street. Didn't even realize how close I was to his studio.
You probably walked quickly though.
Yeah, I did. I was so excited. And get there. That day, the story is longer than this, but because we don't have much time, like basically that day he got a call from every call now that I know Tony is important, but at the time I was like, this must be a really important phone call. And he gets off the phone and he's like, yo, what are you doing next week? I was like, man, I'm so busy. You know, I had no work. I was like crying myself to sleep every night, had no fucking work. What are you doing next week? He's like, well, that was Lady Gaga's manager. And like, she's got 2 songs for me. Maybe we'll do them together, you know, see what you got basically. And we wound up doing those 2 together. And then she gave him 6 more records to do. And he's like, oh, you should move in across the hall. This room's open over here. We should do this more together. So like, that's the long story short. There was like a little bit in between, but he just gave me a shot. And, you know, in that day on that record that did really well, that the one that my mom heard and was like, oh, it makes sense now. The way that I think he recognized that I had something was I just did something that he wouldn't have done. I like overdrove the retro stay level that he had, that he just got. Like, I think it was that day, same day it showed up. His assistant Justin was putting in the racks, and we were so pissed off at how shitty the vocal was recorded. It was on a tour bus and it was all distorted. There was nothing above 5K. And I just turned that input knob up and distorted the stay level. And he came back from a cigarette smoke and was like, huh. And then just kind of like understood what I did. And he took it from there and he went off with it and did his thing. And then like would trade seats with me and be like, you fuck around with make the drums, you know, like we would just throw it back and forth for a minute. And I think he was just giving me a shot. And her asking us to do 6 more in less than a week was like, well, I can't do that much work. So like, I need help. And so that's kind of how I met him. And then I moved in across the hall and I was there for 5 years after that project.
there's a great quote that many people have said. I don't know what the origin is, but I heard it from a baseball coach when I was like 15, which is luck is the point at which preparation and opportunity meet.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of people are
lucky.
People are looking for opportunities, but not focusing on the preparation. And the truth is, if you do really good work and you keep doing good work and you keep pushing yourself to get better, the world is full of opportunities that you won't see until you're prepared for them. And it's not some woo-woo shit. It's really like if you do great work, people will just share it. If you're great to work with and you do great work, people will find you. And certainly the hustle is important, and DMing people is important, and trying to get your stuff out there. But I made a record that people liked, and that's how I met everybody. And you were doing good work, and that's how you met everybody. And then
I took a risk in the room.
Took a risk.
That was the key. I think that he'd probably agree. I don't know. We've never really talked about that moment. Yeah. I don't think we have, unless we were drunk or something and it came up. But he'll say that he recognized something. He recognized something different that he hadn't seen, and that's why he invested in me. And I think it was because, and like I'm not the guy that talks out of turn, but I'm also like, I'd be on the couch and he'd be taking a break and I'd be like, yo, what about if we did this to that thing? And he would say, how about you do it? No resistance. He wouldn't say, nah, bad idea. He'd be like, you do it. Like, oh, you want to hear a wild delay on that background vocal? You do it. And like, I did some crazy shit when Echo Boy just came out, and he was like, yeah, more of that. Like, he hadn't even touched that plugin yet. This is before Instagram. This is like, I don't even think FabFilter had plugins out. This is like Waves and Sound Toys, and McDSP and the stuff that he was using. And like, I had gotten Sound Toys and I was fucking around with it. So I knew how to do things that he didn't have access to yet or whatever. And it's luck, but it's also preparedness. And you're also
providing value for him too. You're providing lots of value.
Yeah, he provided incomparable amounts of value for me. Like, for sure, I'm so lucky. I mean, I'm about to call him after this to talk about the Alicia album, because like, I know what he does to things when he has full reign on what it can sound like. And that one record out of however many is on that album, it just sounds undeniably better than the rest. And he is the best. And he's not the best because he's that talented. He's the best because he listens, that he tries new things, keeps young people around him that have good ideas. And he's just the most open. And, I can't say enough about that dude, as you can clearly tell.
Shout out Tony Maserati.